or the Thursday edition of the Not Your Average Investor Show, the JWB Rental Property of the Week. I'm your host, Pablo Gonzalez. With me, as always, the man that I affectionately call GC because he's got the genius concepts, knows how to generate cash flow. He's a great co-host because his name is Gregg Cohen. Say hello, Greg.
Hello, everybody. Great to be with you.
In the house, as always, these days is our superstar community manager, Madison Lipson.
We'll work on it.
No, we'll work on it. It just if you put it on your Zoom thing, then I can read it. But it just has your first name. But Madison,
so it's totally her fault.
Hello,
it's totally her fault.
I set him up for failure. Apparently,
it's me. I'm not talented enough for this role, and where were we? We love having you. We love having you here. We love our community. We're about to do the usual roll call. And if you're listening on the podcast, it is as fun as it sounds to be here, being part of the roll call. Come get a nickname. Come be called out on the show. Make a friend in the chat. Go to nyais.com and be part of this roll call. Y'all ready?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Just checking in the chat right now. We got Carl Thompson, good morning, everybody. Lee Bishop, the MVP of the Not Your Average Investor Show community, says, hello, everyone. Glad to be here today. Happy Income Property of the Week. Leo Ferganen says, good morning, all the way from the Bay Area, California. Nadeem Shah says, hi, good morning, good afternoon. Drew Barnhill says, good afternoon, you beautiful people. Drew, I got a surprise for you in a little bit. Ooh. We got Nadeem already said your name. Madison Lipson is in the house.
There we go.
She's checking in as well. We got Noah Randari. Hello, everyone. Greetings from California. We got Ken Moline, the patriarch of the first family of the Not Your Average Investor Show community, with the matriarch, Carolyn, saying hello from beautiful Los Altos, California. We got Eddie Harris from Atlanta. He says, Greg, you have to take the golf sticks with you, fellow golf. Too soon, Eddie. Too soon. True. We got Jen Filson, the fairy godmother of the Not Your Average Investor Show community. She's in the house. Greetings from beautiful Monterey, California, where she's planning the next Northern California NYA IRL meetup. Is anyone up for whale watching? Yes. Yeah, that sounds like fun. Dean Curry from Columbus, Ohio. Welcome back, Dean. We got Hervé Francois saying, hey, JWB fam. Hervé from New Jersey in the house. Good to have you, Hervé. We got Bill Shields with his trademarked Buenas tardes, amigos. Buenas tardes, Bill Shields. We got Marilyn Cotterman from Homosassa, Florida.
Home of the manatees.
Home of the manatees. That's where you swim with the manatees. And Crystal River. Marilyn gave me a little geography lesson of how we're not accurately described. So there's like a trademark of where the home of the manatees is, a city in Florida. And I love it. Thank you, Marilyn, for reaching out and educating us. What I would like to happen is for the city to come after us.
Crystal River.
I think so. I think if we can get in the news for our beef with Crystal River, I think it'd be a lot of fun. For now, Marilyn's from the home of the manatees, and she said it was okay. She said it was okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So
we're good.
Now that we got the roll call out of the way, it is time for my favorite segment, where it's called Madison Shares Good News.
It's the best segment out there. All right, everybody. I got some good news. Look at that. So today is about clients, new and old, putting some new houses under contract. The first person I'd like to call out is Florentino, parents of our very own Sergio, put their first property under contract, and they are set to close tomorrow.
Woohoo!
That's good news.
That's awesome.
Welcome to the family.
That's amazing.
Our very own Nadeem Shah also put a property under contract. He is set to close on the 18th. That makes 2 properties for him.
Yeah.
And then Nancy and Dean Curry have really hit the ground running. They have 6 properties under contract, which makes 7.
That is 7 times the good news right there.
7x good news.
Yes, all of theirs are set to close end of May, early June. So that is awesome.
Wow.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What is GC? What's your favorite news out of that good news there?
So Sergio is a good friend of mine, and we were friends in college, and life came after college, and we all were raising our families and all that good stuff, and we didn't get to spend all that much time together since then. But the show and the community has brought him back. He started to learn about what we do at JWB through the show and through the community. And he's just been one of my lifelong friends. And so we talk a lot more often now. And I think he's in the audience here now and he's on the show. And so to think about how not only has he bought multiple properties for him and his family, now to know that his parents are a part of the JWB family means a lot to me. So that's really, really, really incredible.
I had a feeling that you'd get
You teed
sentimental
me
with
up
that
there.
one. Yeah, go Gators, go Gators, Sergio. I love the growth, man. Dean, Nadeem, like, man, the rapid growth, the action taking. I think it's really, really cool. And before we talk about the property of the week today, I think we got some breaking news. GC, tell me what the breaking news is.
I know you have some breaking news too.
Well, let's go with yours.
I go first.
Let's go with yours.
All right. Well, I wanted to bring everybody up to date. For those who attended our Jacksonville real estate market update about 5 weeks ago, we really dropped some breaking news then. We talked a lot about how the dynamics of the real estate market were leading to a place where demand for JWB's product was going to outpace supply, and it was going to happen relatively soon. When we did that about 5 weeks ago, I shared with everybody that at some point I expected there to be a waiting list. Hey, where we go? Camera one?
Over here.
All right, there we go.
This camera is give me some tricks.
Well, there we go. Perfect. We said it was about 5 weeks ago. And we said, all right, somewhere in the next 2 to 8 weeks, I would expect there to be a waiting list. And a waiting list means that instead of you coming and sitting down with JWB and us mapping out your goals and resources and putting a plan together and you being able to acquire that time, there's going to be a list. There's going to be a waiting list. There's going to be a little bit of an extra wait. And so I wanted to get everybody an update. What we did to smooth that process out is we took 40 properties that were in JWB's company inventory, cash flowing assets that we obviously believe in and have rented for many, many years. And we made those available to kind of smooth the transition for everybody so nobody was blindsided by it. Out of those 40 properties, we have 2 left. We're about 5 weeks in. It's going exactly the way that I shared with you all it would go. We are probably about a week away from a waiting list. As I think about this, right, the goal of the show here is to lean into transparency, to be forward thinking, to prepare everybody about what's going on in the overall market, right, in the overall economy, in real estate, in Jacksonville, and within JWB. And so I look at this, and I think for those who are a part of that Jacksonville real estate market update, you all got some really good information that you could take and of course take action on. And so I'm happy for the foresight. I'm happy for the platform. I'm happy for those folks who have been able to acquire those properties. If you are somebody who is now thinking about it, there's 2 left. There's 2 of those assets left, and there will most likely be a waiting list in about a week. So again, this is actionable information you can use today. We're going to talk about a property of the week. Guess what? This one's going to be available. So
surprise.
So there we are. I think it's a big win for us growing as thought leaders, being able to prepare the audience and for our community and the strength of the community and the value here. So there you go.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. How accurately you predicted that this thing would happen, right? Like I was looking at, I remember when you first told me the timing of when this is gonna run up based on the amount of property sold. They're like, no, it's gonna probably go a little faster than you think because once you start saying it, people start buying it. Then Nadeem and Dean show up and start just buying up all the property. We say that in jest. Honestly, that's just action taking, right? Like good stuff, Nadeem. Good stuff, Dean. Yeah, really well done to set yourself up for long-term success. But once again, I'm always amazed by your ability to tell the future.
The best thing I can do is within this sphere that we're in, if I can help everybody see this a month in advance, 3 months in advance, a year in advance, that's my goal here with the platform. So I think we did a good job there.
I think so too, man. And I say cheekily, tell the future, but it's really just you have a data flywheel.
Yeah. If you saw the same information I saw, you'd be able to tell the future too.
Only if. So speaking of the future, we got more breaking news. We've got an official new nickname.
I love this.
For the Not Your Average Investor Show community. We were thrown down the gauntlet that Drew Barnhill deserves a nickname. I wholeheartedly agree. And
it has been brought to the committee of the nicknaming, the naming of the nickname.
It's brought nicknaming committee, which is me. And I don't know if y'all know this, but Drew used to do high wire acts. Like he went to Florida State University. He was in the circus. He is amongst a bunch of other most interesting men in the world stuff.
Absolutely.
He was like a high wire performer in the circus. So and in the chat, in the meetups, in IRL, in real life. Drew's a bit of he's a rebel rouser. He is the ringmaster of the Not Your Average Investor Show community. That is Drew's new nickname. Drew, the ringmaster of the Not Your Average Investor Show community. Little breaking news.
Apropos.
Apropos. I love it. And we already got a question here from Cal Frank. Cal, that is a name I don't recognize. Welcome to the show. I hope you are here to stay and hang out with us, and feel free to chat more with us in the chat and make friends. But your question is, what is the anticipated time of the waiting list, and what is the typical price point for the home?
We'll talk about the typical price point for homes. They're anywhere from about 180,000 to about 280,000. So you can keep that in mind. Your minimum investment, assuming that you'll be using conventional financing, will be about $50,000 to maybe $60,000 total out of pocket, including your down payment and your closing costs. And then the timeline for the waiting list, you know what? That's yet to be determined. Again, that's largely based on supply and demand as well, right? We have a good idea of what the supply is going to be internally here over the coming months. We see how many new builds are going to be completed and made available for turnkey assets for clients. The demand is up to you guys. So when somebody gets to the point where they're actually ready to make a buying decision, that's when they get put into the waiting list. So it's not, I don't want everybody just to rush to JWB and put your name in on our website and all of this. That's not how the waiting list is determined. We go slow when it comes to onboarding clients. We're still going to go slow when it comes to onboarding clients. We're going to make sure that goals and resources and buying plan have been determined. And at that point, after we invest a few hours in conversations, then we're going to say, okay, well, at this point, this person is ready to make that decision. They've been fully prepared. They know what to expect. We're going to choose a time and a date when we would prepare those options for you to be able to make that decision. And then, assuming that there's a waiting list, call it 2, 3, 4 weeks from now, right? Then you would have your place in line. And when your place in line is up, we set that time for you. We come prepared with the assets for you to be able to make a decision, and we're off and running. So I'm happy to keep you guys updated on what the typical time is for somebody who is waiting. That'll be probably a regular topic going forward. But there will be assets that will be bought all the way during that time. It's just simply because there's too much demand for supply. And so when all those assets for the week are sold, well, then, that's when that waiting list concept plays.
There you go. As far as the waiting list goes, you're super heady of the way that y'all roll stuff out. Did you kind of go examine how other waiting lists how did you decide what the mechanic of how the waiting list is going to work?
Yeah, definitely. Because it's a waiting lists are everywhere else. There's a million different ways to do it. We wanted to do a waiting list in the way that we felt was the JWB way to do this. And more than anything, we care about the client experience. We believe the client experience here is why so many people come back and purchase with us. You can make returns on investment a lot of different ways, but you can't get the type of client experience. So we needed to make sure that the waiting list was going to be congruent with that same experience. So, a lot of other people, because inventory is so scarce for them, they get something that they might not even own that house. They might as the buyer, the company just put it under contract, have it tied up by a contract, not even close on it. And they start to send that out by email to their investor list. And then that investor list is supposed to just wait by their phone or by email and just call in and and then immediately rush and put money down and all of this. And it's just this frenzy and this urgency. And I think that leads to a poor experience and maybe a poor decision. And that's not who we are, right? So the things that have led to success for our client experience are still gonna happen, right? We're gonna be slow bringing people on, right? People can come and learn about us through the show or through our website or through jwbinventory.com and learn all about that. If you're new, you're gonna talk to a member of my team. You're gonna have a few hours of phone calls with my team. And we're going to make sure that you're fully prepared. And at that point, once we all are fully prepared, then we would, more or less lock your spot in for you on the waiting list. But we are not going to go down the path of creating a frenzy or creating amplified urgency when there doesn't need to be that. Because I think when you give up there, you give up client experience and and decisions aren't necessarily made for the right reasons by clients. So.
Got it. So client experience first, not no fake urgency, just usual
The way I'd like to do it.
U-Pod.
The way, you're going to be buying a property here soon. The way I would like for you to be able to buy a property, or the way I would like to do it myself. That's our beacon here.
Okay. Just kidding. This is a picture of Drew doing the high wire circa 1970 something.
The ringmaster himself.
The ringmaster himself.
Look at that.
He literally just sent this to me. I felt like I should. All right, let's go to the property. All right, here we go. Let's magically whisk ourselves away to 3038 Rayford Street, Jacksonville, Florida, 32205. Purchase price of $271,000. It is a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom house with a 1-car garage with a lease of $1698 in place. And where we always go here is you see this lovely picture of this home, but this estimated conventional financing total monthly cash flow of $70 per month. And this estimated conventional financing total ROI of 6.03%. Greg, I'm going to ask you what you love about this property. But first, if you are just joining us for the first time, you may have gotten used to the idea that we always have a guest investor on, and this is like a 3-way conversation. This is kind of old school. We did this for a year. We just went deep into the property. We really want to use today's show as a ask me anything. Let's get the questions rolling in the Q&A, whatever questions you have of the market, of the property, of whatever you got going on. We want to go deep into questions like we haven't had a chance to do before. And my first question is, GC, what do you love about this property?
Well, the very first thing that I love about this property is that it's available. This is one of those 2 remaining properties that is actually available. And fun fact, for those who are in the Facebook group, ahead of time, you saw us go a little bit of a kind of behind the scenes sneak peek of what it looks like prior to the show. Well, I sat down about 12:05 or 12:10. Pablo and I are getting ready to kick the show off. And we're like, oh, we're set. Pretty much set. And then I'm like, oh, mate, let me check to see if that property that I had chosen was still available. And it literally had just sold. It was just put under contract. So now I'm like, oh, goodness. Let me look at the other properties that we have available. Let me see if I can find a replacement property. So this one, 3038 Rayford Street, is available. I literally just put this together about 7 minutes prior to the show.
I was there.
You were there. And for those, of course, who want to take action and don't want to be on any sort of waiting list, availability is the most important thing right now. Beyond that, this home was built in 2017. It was built by JWB. It has been in our inventory since then. And it's rented right now. I mean, you don't get the opportunity to buy a rental property today, a new construction rental property that is already rented. You don't get the opportunity to literally put that under contract because you want to today. You typically go on a waiting list, right? You wait a little bit of time. And then what you wait for is that home to be built. So think that's maybe like 6 months out, 9 months out now. And then once it's built, you close on it and then it's not rented yet because that might take 30 or 60 days for somebody to move in. So this is like a year speeding up the process by it simply being here, ready, available, built, already rented, and cash flow and positive from day one. So I definitely love it beyond that. But there's something else too that I love about this property.
Oh,
tell me more.
Tell me more.
So here's a pretty cool example of how JWB thinks beyond just what is happening day and now right here for this property. We have a responsibility to set you up for success for the client that purchases this home. This home is actually rented right now. As I mentioned, it's cash flow positive, but we look in advance. And this home has a renewal date of May 2nd. So a little bit less than a month from now, this resident has the opportunity from now until then to make the decision to renew. If they decide to renew, that's wonderful because they renew it at market rate, right? That's that $1698 that you see on the evaluation right there. It would be renewed at that rate. And during that time, right, you're working towards closing. So by the time that you close on it, it would be rented at market rate, which is exciting for you. Again, rented day one at market rate. You just don't get that opportunity. But what happens if the resident doesn't decide to renew, right? JWB would still be owning this property on May 2nd. So JWB is responsible for any property turn costs that would be incurred from that resident moving out and then putting that new resident in the home. So that's an expense that we would have, and the end client who purchases this home, again, gets a property that is just renovated with the property turn up to our standard, and has an asset that's fully cash flowing because it's now rented at the new lease rate as well. So the client's protected any single way you shake this down. And I think that's a really wonderful thing, because you just don't typically get that here and now in this market. You typically have to wait a long time to do that.
A long time. Got it. You said that this is if the resident were to not renew in June,
Yeah.
that this is a cost that you would incur. What does that actually mean?
Well, let's just say that an average out-of-pocket cost for a property turn is about $2,500. So when the resident moves out, they break some stuff, or some stuff has just wear and tear that would be the owner's responsibility. So JWB is going to foot the bill to do all of that work to put it back into great rental shape, so that we can attract a resident who wants to sign a long-term lease at that new rental rate.
Got it. So normally the experience is you are getting a home that's rented, and you're going to provide the same experience, even though it's rented right now and there may be a turn early on. You're going to cover whatever the tenant improvement, whatever the vacancy is, things that sort, cash flow positive day one, as opposed to, here's your property, good luck.
Yeah, like I look at it this. So like the normal approach is like, if you're buying a renovation right now, this is in a worst case scenario, this would be like a renovation, which people are dying to buy renovated properties right now, right? So in a worst case scenario, you've got a renovation that JWB just did, like a property turn.
Yeah.
That's what people are fiending over right now in the real estate market. They would love to do that. What you also have here is the upside of potentially having a resident who's been in there for multiple years and is now re-signing a long-term renewal as well. So you have upside of cash flow from day one and at the market rent with a brand new lease sign for an extended period of time. So the worst case scenario is what people would want to be able to buy an asset that's just recently been renovated or turned. Now you have that plus some upside with a resident. Resident's been in the home since 2017. They've already renewed once in 2020. So they may decide again to renew again.
I mean, listen, as somebody, I would guess, this is just me thinking, right? But like, I would assume that renewal rates are going to tick up in this market, right? In this market, because I rent here, right? I'm investing in properties, but I haven't bought a home in Jacksonville. And when I look at my options of renewal, it's like, man, I can stay where I'm at right now, or I can go somewhere else where rent is already going to be reflected like super, super jacked up. And then I got to incur this cost to move and blah, blah, blah. I would assume that not only the upside right now of this market of being in as a rental property investor, there has to be some extra upside on the idea that people are going to be motivated to stay in place, specifically in Jacksonville, where rents are going bananas right now.
Absolutely. I mean, we're having the single greatest year for renewal percentages in our company history.
There you go.
And our property management team is incredible, and it is a lot of their hard work. But at the same time, market dynamics are going in favor for all of us as rental property investors, as property managers, because of the dynamics that you just talked about, right? As rental property investors, we can create a win here where you can still have rental increases, rate increases, and still lock people into a lease long-term, and they're going to win and you're going to win. And that's what you're seeing perfected, because if this person makes the decision to renew, they're renewing at market rent. Market rent is it's $440 higher than what they're currently paying right now.
Yeah.
I mean, and those types of rent increases are what people are paying in many situations in our portfolio, because rents have risen that much. And the reason they would decide to do that is because it's lower or less valuable to go and it's lower to rent from JWB, or it's less valuable to go and rent from somebody else when you factor in moving costs or what have you. So it's still valuable to pay those significant rent increases. And this is why investing in hard assets in inflationary times is so critical, right? You're riding the wave here as a rental property investor, as somebody who buys a hard asset like a rental property. This is why Wall Street is pouring into single family rental properties like they never have before. It's because of an inflation hedge, which is part of what you're seeing with rents going up.
All right, cool. Let's lean into some education, man. Since we don't have a guest investor, let's do a little what we normally do of breaking this thing down.
Love it.
Before that, we want questions, right? Like we really want this to be ask your hardest questions, ask the things that you're most thinking about, whatever it is, we're going to go deep into that. Lee's got a question right off the bat. Greg, can you talk about how many houses JWB has in the works that are in construction or waiting for the occupancy permit? The waiting list may be short-lived, right?
Hey, Lee, great question. Let's talk about this from a grand picture. JWB has over 1,500 lots, right? Not all of those are being built on, but JWB historically buys a lot more lots than we'd sell in a year so that we're prepared and we have that runway for clients. Now, if you think about what's in construction right now, our plan is to start about 600 builds this year. That's on top of starting about 300 last year. So if you run all the numbers, we have over 300 builds that are actively in various stages of construction right now. And I expect that number to continue to grow. We are building as much as we possibly can, as most builders are building as much as they possibly can right now. Builds take longer today than they did in the past, so I expect that number to grow as far as how many builds are currently going on at the moment. And then we have over 300 that are in some stage of what we would call site work or permitting as well. So you got overall inventory, 1,500 plus lots. You got 300 that are in the very initial stages of permitting or site work. And then you've got 300 that are in the construction phase. And once those continue to move all the way through the pipeline, those become assets for our clients to be able to purchase. And then Lee's question about, is the waiting list short-lived? I don't know. I really don't know. I think there's a lot of dynamics. If you think about this, the best thing overall is for JWB to remove the variables from this experience. And the longer that we're able to control the asset, meaning for our clients, like if we own it and we rent it, right, the less variables there are for clients when they purchase the home, right? Yep. What you've seen over the last year is because of the market and because of demand, we made it available for clients to put properties under contract way early on in the process, right? When it was under construction. And, that creates more variables. Like one variable is like, if you put it under contract at a certain expectation for an interest rate, but then it takes 6 months and maybe 3 months longer than you expected to build, your interest rate might be higher, right? So I think our focus is on client experience. I think what you'll see over time is for us to control more of the experience before we sell it to a client. So that could be things like waiting till properties are rented to sell. So I just bring that up, Lee, because it's not simply this waiting list may or may not happen or be here when demand and supply kind of get to where they need to be. More than that, it's like, when is the ideal time in terms of client experience for clients to purchase? And that, so I don't really know that equation. We will continue to talk about it often. We'll keep you up to date here on the show. And yeah, so I think it'll be a trendy topic for a while.
All right. As usual, MVP of the Not Your Average Investor Show community, Lee, puts up a great question, great conversation. A couple of people saying that they like this conversation in the chat here. We got another one, right? David Blattner is asking, hey, is the supply chain improving and labor so that it is faster and easier for JWB to build than last year?
I bet David's a really positive person. I bet he's an optimist. I love talking to David. And I wish you were right about that, David. I wish that things were getting better. I wish that the labor market and the supply market was starting to ease, but actually it is the opposite. In fact, I was just listening to John Burns and reading some of his research and some of his thoughts. And Alex on my team actually just had a one-on-one conversation with John the other day. And what we are hearing across the board is that it's going to get worse before it gets better. So expect long times to build houses for the next 12 to 18 months. because the supply markets are substantially, I don't know what the adjective is, right?
Overloaded.
Overloaded,
Supply is overloaded. I guess that's confusing. But
yeah, I don't know.
They're
They're a
throttled.
mess.
They're throttled.
They're a mess. They're a mess right now. And it's at the same time, labor is hard to find because there's so much happening, right? There's so much building going on. So we're gearing up for this to be the new normal for at least the next year. And I would suggest for everybody to do the same when it comes to the new construction market.
And David confirms in the chat, he is an optimist.
I love it. I can tell.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's great.
More questions from optimists, please.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Optimists, welcome. All right, GC. Well, then, so we talked a lot about macro stuff. Let's go micro, right? Let's look at this. Let's look at this property right now. I know that when JWB offers up a property, these two numbers here are the two main drivers of the decision that's being made by the educated investors that invest with JWB. First is this estimated conventional financing, total monthly cash flow of $70. Can you tell me what that represents?
So cash flow is incredibly important. It's like the entrance to the dance of rental property investing. It is your ticket to get into the ballpark of rental property investing. And the reason is, number one, because positive cash flow makes this an asset, right? For me, as a simpleton, I think of assets as things that put money into your bank account, and liabilities are things that take money out of your bank account. And if we're thinking about things that put money into your bank account, a rental property puts money into your bank account. If you buy correctly with the right team in the right market, you can have something that pays you every single month. Even though you have some expenses along the way, you get more rental income than the expenses that go out the door. And that spread right there is that positive cash flow for you. And the key here is risk mitigation. When you have an asset that pays for itself every single month, that's risk mitigation. And what it now allows you to do is to be scalable. Scalability is important if you have goals that dictate that you need to purchase multiple properties, 10 properties, 15 properties, 20 properties, like some of our clients own, right? Dean, who now is under contract all the way to 7 properties, right? I guarantee you that Dean likes the fact that these assets pay for themselves every single month. If he was going a couple $100 in the month in the whole negative for every one of those properties, and he had to put out $1,400 a month to own this asset, he wouldn't be nearly as excited to keep adding to his portfolio. So there's scalability in the wonderful example for Dean and his family. Congratulations, Dean, by the way. It's awesome that you're getting to 7, man.
Yeah, Dean confirms. Yes, he does.
Yes, he does. Absolutely.
Yes, he does like it.
So it's risk mitigation, it's scalability, it's your entrance to the dance. That's what positive cash flow is.
Yep. And so that is an abstract version of you got to have positive cash flow for this to be as attractive an asset as it is.
Mm-hmm.
There's only a couple of positive cash flow markets in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
right? But what is the actual, that's $70 a month. What does it mean?
Yeah, it's what happens on a normal month. So in rental properties, it's important to think about on a normal month, are you bringing more money in or you have money leaving, right? So specifically, you're taking your gross rental income and you're taking the things that happen every single month and figuring out what the expenses are. And you're taking that out of the equation. So you've got a loan on it, right? So you got your principal payments, your interest payments, your taxes, your insurance costs, and you have your property management fees. Those things are happening every single month, right? It's important. That's what cash flow is. That's how you define what an asset and what a liability is. If you go to most markets out there, you're going to find that between your principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and property management fees, you don't have enough to cover the rent. And that's why Jacksonville is such an incredible real estate market.
There you go. So typical monthly experience, right? Out of most months you sign a 2-year lease, there's probably about like 20 months are going to be this.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's going to be maybe when there's a turn or there's some kind of, fix that needs to happen to the property. I can say that in the 2 properties that I've owned, there's been like one month, like recently, I had to make a little bit of an improvement. I think I had to come out of pocket like $600 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But every other month, I've just been getting my cash flow number.
Yep.
Right, yep, that makes sense.
There you go.
So then what is this estimated conventional financing total ROI of 6.03%?
So total return on investment is how hard is your money working for you, right? Cash flow is important to make sure that it's paying for itself every single month, risk mitigations and stability. But at the end of the day, your job as an investor is to use your dollars wisely, and those dollars should be working hard for you. And the way you measure that is what is your return on investment? What this takes into account are the things that happen outside of every single month, but still affect your total returns. So we take some positive things that happen outside of every single month, and we take the negative items that happen outside of every single month. So positively, we're talking about things like tax savings and principal pay down. These are another 2 of the 5 profit centers that are incredibly valuable. And if you join us regularly on Thursdays, when we have a client and a guest investor, a lot of times we'll break down the 5 profit centers. Many times the tax savings and the principal pay down is more than the cash flow, right? It's a bigger impact on their overall return on investment than the cash flow. But most investors either don't know how to evaluate this or choose not to evaluate it for some reason I don't understand. And they don't include tax savings and principal pay down. But this return on investment, the 6.03% number, does include those 2 profit centers. It also includes the negative items. So think of things like maintenance costs, vacancy costs, property turn costs, right? When that home turns over and you have to put money back into that, right? That's included there. It's also including tenant placement fees, right? When that home turns over and you have to pay another tenant placement fee to put that home, a new resident in that home, it includes that cost as well. It also includes closing costs. These are some things that many times other providers do not include on their evaluations because many people want to inflate them to be as high as they possibly can. But for us, we choose not to do that. And we actually don't even include home price appreciation in our market, which is interesting because Jacksonville is a growth market. If you're talking about a growth market, that's defined as where the historically accurate home price appreciation rate is greater than the national average. I looked at all the other cash flow markets out there. None of them are higher than the national average for home price appreciation. It's 4.5% across the entire country from 1982 until now. Jacksonville's 4.6, right? None of those other cash flow markets are anywhere close to 4.5. But if you look on their evaluations, you're going to see an appreciation rate baked into their evaluations right off the bat. We do it differently over here for a number of reasons. But this 6.03% does not include home price appreciation, which I have an inkling that we'll probably dabble into in just a minute here.
I think your inkling's on point, right? So I think we're gonna, unless we get a bunch of other questions, we're gonna take some time to talk about the 5 profit centers a little bit more deeply. But right now, we've mentioned 3, right? We've mentioned cash flow as a profit center. We've mentioned that debt pay down is a profit center, right? This idea that Tim Hicks popularized here famously on the Not Your Average Investor Show, all else equal, I've got a tenant, I've got a resident that's paying down a mortgage, and that every time that they pay that down, that part of the principal is getting paid down goes into equity in my balance sheet, right? And then we got tax savings as well, which is something where right around now, this time of the year, feels pretty good, right? Like for Ringmaster Drew, as he's doing a whole bunch of taxes for people, not his favorite time of year, but for rental property investors, it's great because you get to take these deductions out that help you and, increase your ROI and increase your, what you're doing.
Amazing.
And then there's appreciation, right? Which appreciation here on the sheet is put at 0%, but we're going to teach you how that works right now. And I would love to do it in the scope of what Nick Grandstaff here puts in the chat. Nick, welcome to the show, man. Good to have you. And he says, if I've got 20 years until retirement, am I thinking correctly that if I'm not super concerned with mega cash flow now in order to create it 20 years later, when I'd like to live off, hold on. So let me,
I got it.
Yeah. I think you know what I'm saying. I just think I read it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Nick's got 20 years and he's asking, is it right to think that he doesn't really need to be thinking about the cash flow now? He wants to be thinking about the cash flow in 20 years.
Well, here's what I love about what you're saying. We're making 20-year decisions. Like we are investing for the long haul. This asset class performs so well across your other alternatives when you give it time. And the time that you need to give it is 10 to 20 years. This needs to be something you get into. And it's like, listen, I'm going to do the due diligence on the team. I'm going to buy this asset and, I'm going to hold on to it for 10 or 20 years. Right. So I love that. But you're asking, hey, listen, is this something that I really shouldn't be so concerned about cash flow today? I should be more concerned with cash flow in 20 years. Cash flow today and cash flow in 20 years is going to look very different for you because of inflation, right? Your rents are going to rise, and because your loan balances are going to go way down, may even be paid off in 20 years. So yes, cash flow today is not going to change your life. Cash flow in 20 years can absolutely change your life. What I would encourage you, Nick, to do is to look beyond cash flow now and in 20 years, right? Because all 5 profit centers are the thing that are really going to change rental property investors' lives, right? I would encourage you to look beyond just cash flow. Even though cash flow in 20 years can change your life, look beyond cash flow. Look for these other 4 profit centers that we've just talked about. If you're investing for 20 years, you can count on home price appreciation, because if you look at 20-year segments of time, going all the way back to 1982, what happens is markets are cyclical and home price appreciation rates tend to repeat themselves if you give it enough time. So not only is cash flow going to change your life in 20 years, most likely, the growth, the home price appreciation over that timeline, if you choose the right market, will also change your life. And that growth is going to be more life-changing than the cash flow at that point.
All right. So let's talk about that. First, I do want to say one thing to illustrate the whole cash flow thing and to what Nick is saying, right? Like, this is something that I learned doing these property of the weeks on this show, is this idea that right now it's $70 a month, but in 20 years, it's going to be much closer to this $1,192 a month, and probably higher than that because rents are most likely going to go up.
Yeah. 20 years of rent growth of 3-4% a year. And that number is whatever. Somebody can run the calculation and let us know.
Yeah. So as an investor, when I got on board with JWB, I know that I was looking at this number, but my plan, right, what we try to figure out of where I want to be in 20 years is more of, once you acquire these properties, you're looking at this like paid down rate, which is a much more elevated cash flow.
Love that. I love you shining a light on that.
I love shining a light on it myself. So let's talk about appreciation, GC, right? Why do you have, if you talk about appreciation in these glowing terms, right? Why is it at 0% on this sheet?
A few things. Number one, this asset stands on its own 2 feet in comparison to where you're thinking about putting your money, even if we don't have to put home price appreciation in there, right? 6% returns where they produce monthly positive cash flow for you, backed by an asset that performs consistently in normal times, right? And also abnormal times, like we've seen over the last 2 years. Rental properties, single family rental properties in a market like Jacksonville, you can't find another asset classes that has performed as well. And probably the most abnormal time we probably will ever see. Man, I probably should knock on some wood, man. I feel like I just...
There you go. Greg is knocking on wood. For the podcast audience, Greg just knocked on wood.
I had to knock on wood there. So you just can't get a solid 6% return that produces monthly cash flow that is consistent across the board. Like, normally when people want to get conservative and want to get a solid monthly cash flow that is backed by something that's consistently performing, they go to things like bonds, right? You can't get a 6% bond out there.
No,
you can't. You can't do that. CDs, I mean, savings accounts, right? You can't get that type of income generation. So when you look at 6%, this stands on its own 2 feet, and you don't have to inflate these values to be what they possibly can be. Now, there's still significant upside over that, which we'll get into in a second. But the other part of this is I want to bring clients into our business that believe what we believe, and I don't want speculators. And, if you are somebody who's looking to buy today and then sell this rental property in a year from now, or 3 years from now, 5 years from now, this is not the right asset or the right fit with JWB, because I can't control that. I feel very confident about home price appreciation working out over 10 to 20 year segments of time. I have lived this and invested since 2006, and I feel really good about where the market's going over the next 12 months, but you know what? I'm not going to make any predictions beyond that. And I don't want you to invest predicting or assuming or betting on something like that. So that's the second reason is I don't know if you're going to invest for a full market cycle, and I don't want you to speculate. And the third one is, if you look at how JWB does things, we love to under promise and over deliver. I care deeply about this 6.03% return on investment. And I want you to hold me accountable to that and everybody on my team accountable to that forever. That's why we produce reporting every single month and send it out to clients. Hey, listen, 10 years ago when you bought at this return on investment, here's how we're performing against that. And so under promising and over delivering, if you're of that mentality, having home price appreciation in your back pocket to be able to overperform for people is a wonderful tool to be able to do that. Whether they are investing for less than 10 years or more than 10 years, it's kind of like the ace up our sleeve. And we want to do better than what we told you from a return perspective. It gives us the opportunity to do that.
Okay, so let's see how comfortable it's going to feel in that back pocket. And you got the appreciation rate here at 0, right? We know that if you're investing for a full market cycle, what we look at is that 20-year average, 30-year average, right?
Mhm.
Is that what it is?
40 years.
40. So I was way off. I was only off by like 50%. So we're looking at a 40-year average, right? The 40-year average is 4.6%. So let's say that you are going to invest for a full market cycle, even though right now it's like 12, 15%. What is it right now?
You mean appreciation year over year?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 20% last year in Jacksonville.
Okay.
Yeah.
20%. That's significant.
Yeah.
So real quick, as far as that goes, knowing that appreciation rate's happening right now, and then eventually it's going to even out to 4.6%. Is that a negative, or is that or am I thinking wrong when I describe it as you're kind of playing with house money if you have the high end appreciation rate coming in?
I don't think that's a negative.
Okay.
I mean, what that means is that home prices in the future are never going to be as low as they are today.
Makes sense.
Right? If you shoot out of the cannons and you get 20% appreciation in your first year, and then over time it averages out to where you're at 4%. I mean, you could have 20% appreciation and 3% a year for the next 19 years. And I don't know what the math is, but in theory, you could get somewhere closer to 4%.
Yeah,
right?
That makes sense.
So it's not like because you go 20% here, you have to go negative the next year. It just means you probably are going to have on average less than 4%, 4.6% appreciation over the remaining 19 years.
Yeah, but getting the 20% in the first year gets you quicker to having equity that then you can leverage to do other things.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Amazing opportunity,
Okay.
which is why right now is the best time to buy.
So let's talk about 4.6% appreciation. I'm going to put it in here, right? This is a interactive sheet that you can download at home at jwbinventory.com. And I press enter and it shoots up from a 6% ROI to 23.53% ROI.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Whoa. Show me a bond who can do that.
Yeah, right. Show me a stock that does that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Explain this, GC. How do we just jump up 17%?
This is the magic of smart debt. This is the magic of leverage. This is the magic of investing in an asset that goes up in value while you're borrowing other people's money. When the market goes up, let's just say 4%, right? Your return on investment doesn't necessarily go up 4%. If you are mastering smart debt, if you are only putting a smaller portion of your money into the deal, your return on investment actually goes up much higher than 4%. And that's what we're seeing here, right? Let's do this exercise for everybody who's watching, right? Go to your phone and let's assume that the property, we're going to say a property is it's a $100,000 property. So type in $100,000 into your phone. All right. And then let's just say that property value goes up 4% that year. Times 1.04 means that this home is now worth $104,000, right? That's 4%, that's 4% of appreciation. And that's $4,000 of return from that home price appreciation. But if you only put 25% down, your initial investment is only $25,000. So now start over, okay? You got your $4,000 in gain and divide that by 25,000. What you see here is a 16% return. This is your 16% return just on the home price appreciation. when you couple the other profit centers that we just talked about, roughly that 6% of other profit centers, you add 16 plus 6 or 7% roughly, and that's how you get this 23, 24% overall return on investment when you're factoring in all 5 profit centers. That's what most people don't understand about real estate. It's the combination of smart debt on an asset that goes up in value over time. And that's why this asset class beats both bonds and stocks over the long haul.
Yeah. I mean, I never thought about it this way until this discussion that we were having a little while earlier of just like, I wonder what Warren Buffett's stock, appreciates over time, right? And just the idea that if you have positive cash flow, right? So like you're break even on cash flow and you're putting down 25% and you know that historically it's going to appreciate at 4.3%, just mathematically, you can bake in a 16% ROI.
Yeah.
That's pretty freaking good. That's not what your Merrill Lynch guy is going to tell you they can get you in the stock market.
It's interesting. Most people would say, oh, in the stock market over time, I get between 7 to 9%. Let's define what that is. That's 7 to 9% appreciation.
Yep.
Return on appreciation. If all you get was the historical average of appreciation for your rental property in Jacksonville, let's just keep the math easy and say it's 4%. You're comparing 7 to 9% of appreciation in the stock market versus 16% appreciation in rental properties. That point right there is not communicated, understood, loved as much as it should be. Because if more people understood that, more people would invest in rental properties if they could make it easy and work with a great team. But you wouldn't have to fight this battle as much as you do of like, why does it make sense for me? Can I even earn money in rental properties? Like, of course, right? This isn't new. We're not creating a new strategy here. It's literally buy and hold and use smart debt.
Makes sense to me, man. We haven't hit that hard on a property of the week in a long time because we have a guest investor. I'm glad we got to kind of go over that. And I feel like since it's been a while, I know it much better.
Yeah, this is awesome, man.
Which is fun. We got one more question here from one of our listeners in France. Anonymous Attendee asks, hey guys, I am also noticing insurance rates going up in my rentals. This, of course, affects positive cash flow. Are the numbers recalculated and reflected in the current monthly cash flows? Thanks, and we will all get through this.
Anonymous, wonderful question. We have had this question a number of times, and it is very timely. There are legal challenges in the Florida property market that are causing insurance companies to raise rates, really, to raise premiums. And there's a whole lot more behind that. And I'm not the best person to speak on all of that, but there's a lot more lawsuits in the state of Florida than there are in other states, and that's causing premiums to rise. And so rental property investors are concerned, and they're saying, is this something that, should I even invest in rental properties if my insurance rates go up? What happens to my cash flow? And so I wanted to give some perspective here, right? This has been going on for a year or two, right? This is not new. The increases are already factored into the market rates. We've seen our insurance rates go up dramatically. Like, for example, this property on Rayford Street. If you go back and you look at properties of the week, or you go back and talk to our team from 2 years ago, likely this homeowner's insurance would be somewhere between $300 to $400 a year. It's $581 a year. It's going up more on renovated homes than it is on new construction. You're seeing those increases happen, but they've already happened, right? They are already priced in. We price our insurance today based on the market rates today. And what has happened is already affecting the market. And so I feel really confident about the numbers that we put in front of you when you make this decision, Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous, that we want to be held accountable to this. And we're going to be able to hit that 6% roughly return on investment because we have a pretty good understanding of the lay of the land on the insurance rate. I want to put this into, so if you're buying today, it's already baked in. It's already priced in.
So the answer is yes, it's priced in. That's the short answer.
That's the short answer. But I also want to talk about people that I can't do a short answer. I mean, I don't know.
I wouldn't make fun of you.
Yeah. You know me by now. Yeah. Let's think about the people who are most affected by this are the people that bought properties 3 years ago, 5 years ago, renovated properties 3 or 5 years ago, right? Those folks are seeing substantially higher increases on their insurance costs than even what was on JWB's evaluation. right? And that is absolutely the case. But what else has happened for those investors who bought 3 years ago, 5 years ago? Have rents gone up?
Rents have gone up.
Rents have gone up. Has prices gone up?
Prices have gone up.
Yeah. Do you think that they're winning?
Probably winning.
Probably winning.
Yeah.
Probably winning. I mean, that's just the reality. I'm an owner of rental properties as well. That's how I view it, right? My insurance costs are higher than I expected probably 3 years ago. They would be at this time, but I'm winning, right? You're winning if you owned rental properties 3 years ago in both cash flow and growth.
That is an interesting perspective. And for the record, Anonymous is the first name. Atende is the last name. Mr. and Mrs. Atende.
I screwed that up.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, likely. That was awesome. Traditional POTW like we haven't had in a long time. I really enjoy this stuff. Kind of like nerding out, seeing you go crazy about answering these questions and going really long with it.
Yeah.
Really, really fun. Tuesdays, I feel like we have a bunch of new folks today. So like just super pumped to see the audience continue to grow. We do this on Thursdays. We go into a property. We often have a guest investor that's a JWB client and an investor and talk about their story while we talk about a property and kind of have a three-way conversation, or we do this on Thursdays. Tuesdays, we generally have a guest that is educating you on other things, whether it's another asset class that you can now compare. Like this Tuesday that just passed, we had Frank Rolfe talking about mobile home park investing. On this Tuesday coming up, we've got the Al Nicoletti,
The man,
Al Nicoletti. He's coming back because he's been so good. He came on last year. Al is a lawyer. He's a content. He is as entertaining as he is brilliant. So I'm really, really looking forward to it. And Al has started this show called the Al Nicoletti Show that he interviews real estate investors. And he's an attorney that's really well-versed in probate. So he can tell you kind of like all the wacky stuff that happens when properties change hands, right? Like we know that these are legacy plays for investors like us and all the wacky things that can happen. So you can protect your assets, you can look out for that stuff. And you're going to hear some great stories from a super animated dude. I can't wait to have him on. So join us on Tuesday. And if you're listening on the podcast, that's awesome, man. We love the podcast audience is growing as well. And that's really, really cool. But don't miss a chance to get a nickname. Like just show up, go to nyais.com, take a little bit of time out of your day on a Tuesday or Thursday, put it on the calendar, let it be there to remind you so that if you have a free moment, you're having a tuna sandwich by yourself, you can tune in however you want. Join us here, hang out with us, spend some time. This is the family. We never take it for granted that we have right now 30 plus people in the chat that have taken an hour out of your day to hang out with us. We love you. Thank you so much for adding so much value to the show. And I'll kick it over to you, GC, before you, any last words before your vacay?
I'm just super appreciative of these moments. It has been really wonderful to kind of run it back to old school times. So thank you all for making this just so fun. I really hope the folks that are listening on podcasts join us here in the community, nyais.com. That's where you want to go and you can register and you can join for free, of course. I say that people come maybe initially for the content, but they stay for the community. They stay because of all of you out there and the wonderful, loving, supportive chat and friendships that we have. So thank you guys for making this super fun. And I will enjoy my vacation and not play any golf just to make sure Pablo welcomes me back.
Make sure that you don't. And happy Easter for anybody. Happy Passover, anybody that's going to celebrate Passover.
Absolutely.
We'll see y'all next week.
See you guys.